I'm going to introduce you to text animation. And this is going to be just a demonstration, but if you want to follow along, go ahead and open up 0701 text animation. I have two comps here, one with just some basic text, and another comp that's full of animated text, and we're going to get to that one a little bit later. When you think about animation, you typically think about animating the transform properties of a layer. And down here you open up text, and there are the transform properties, just as you'd expect. So you animate, let's say, position. There you go. And here we're animating the entire layer. The layer is defined by the bounding box there. Animate scale. There we go. Rotation, and it rotates on the anchor point, like so. And opacity. It does it for the entire layer. But there's this great feature inside After Effects where you can animate text on a per character, per word, or a percentage basis. In other words, you can have any of the transform properties change, but just for part of the text, and then you can animate that, have it, let's say, go across the text one word at a time or something like that. Plus, there's some other things you can animate, including the fill and the stroke. So let me give you a basic idea of how that works. I'm going to reset the transform properties here. I'll bring this guy kind of back over here where it started. Every text layer has a text property group, and off to the right of the property group name there is this thing that says animate. If you click on that, then you can select any one of these transform properties plus several others here that you can then animate on a per character, per word, or percentage basis, as opposed to doing it for the entire layer. So you've got all the same things you can animate down here with a few additional ones, plus skew up here as well. And so let me try that. We'll just start off by doing fill color. I'll go RGB, which is the typical fill color. And by default, when you change to the fill color, the new fill color is red. Now, what just happened down there? Let me scroll down a little bit. You see that we added an animator to the text property group. And inside the animator is a range selector. The range selector says, what part of this text do you want to apply this changed thing to? The changed thing being the color. If I change the color to something else, let's say, make it green, then that's what shows up here. So the range says that the start of the area that you want to apply this color to and the end are right there. And the start is 0%. And the end is 100%. So it's basically saying that everything inside that range from the start to the end is going to be green, which is fine, but you probably want to do something other than the entire string of text. You want it to be part of the text or animated across the text. And the way you do that is by changing the range selector. You change what is included in the area that's going to be changed. Now, again, I'm going to explain this in more detail in the next lesson, but let me just give you a brief look at that. When I click on the animator, you get these little handles that show up, and these guys define the range. So if I take the end, which is right down here, 100%, and I reduce it to something less than 100%, you can see that the stuff outside the range is the original color of the text. The stuff inside the range is the new color. So this is where the animation comes in. You can animate these properties. You can animate the end, the start, or what's called the offset. You can define, let's say, a width of an area that you want to have the new color, but then you can move that using the offset, like so. We put this back to 0. There we go. I can also add elements to this little range that I'm going to change. In addition to just fill color, I can say add something else. Let's add opacity. Right? Now, opacity is at 100% right now, so nothing's happening. But if I lower that down a little bit, anything inside the range will have a lower opacity. Again, I can change the offset, move it along like that, change the end, have it animate like so, change the start, have it animate like that. So that's the basic thinking behind how this works. You select an area, you apply some changes to the properties that you want to have animated, and then you can have that selected area change over time. You can have it move left and right, right to left, get bigger or smaller. That's sort of the basic approach. Let me show you some of this in action over here in this text animation comp. Now, these guys are kind of complex. These are a little higher level than some of the things we're going to work on because these are text animation presets that were created by folks at Adobe. And what's really cool about these things is that you can apply a preset to text and then adapt it to your needs. You can change the keyframes if you want to. All right, let's take a look here at some of this text. This text is coming in kind of randomly like that. Bring it from the top, and the opacity is increasing as it comes in. This randomization is something called character offset. I'll show you that in a second. Move on a little bit farther here. Here, animating text within the line as opposed to having it animate on, going back and forth. I kind of showed you this before where we just selected part of the text and then moved the offset back and forth. There you go. Next one here, again, animates within it kind of randomly, bounces it around. This one animates off, and notice how the letters change as they go off. That's that character offset thing again. What we're doing here is we're taking the end of the range and starting at the end there and pulling it off. Let me show you that looks. I'll open this up. Look at the animator down here. I'll scroll down so you can see the animator there. You'll see the only thing that has keyframes, all that amazing stuff, but the only thing that has keyframes is just the end property for the range selector. Here the end is at 0, meaning that the end, which would be down here you'd think, but is over here. So nothing is inside the range there is what's going on here. But as we go forward, the end is moving across here so that this is the beginning and there's the end. So stuff between the two is inside the range. And whatever's in the range gets dropped to 0% opacity. That's it. That's all that's going on here. The fact that there are these kind of randomized letters is because of a thing called character offset, which is down here. We've offset the character by some amount. If I change this to 0, for example, then they won't be offset. They'll actually be the original letters going off like that. Just changing the offset to some other number besides 0 changes them to something else. Bigger the number, the more randomized they are. There we go, as they go off. So we're just moving the end keyframe. That's all. One little thing causes all that cool stuff to happen like that. All right, we'll move on to the next stuff here. Let me close this down. The next stuff is all per character 3D. This is stuff being animated in 3D space. And I'm going to discuss this quite a bit later in the course when I talk about 3D and lights and cameras, that kind of stuff. But here we go. We'll just take a preview of that. The text kind of comes up from the bottom like that, spinning in from our direction, coming in from way off in the distance and kind of dropping off toward us. So those are character animations, again, looking like this. And we can do all of this stuff inside After Effects by simply animating on a per character, per word, or a percentage basis. So I think that gives you a basic idea of what you can do in terms of text animation. I'm going to show you how to apply presets and how to create custom animation in the upcoming lessons.